With us today, this is Stuart Cullivan, EVP of Global Brand Strategy at MMGY Global. He has created brands for a number of destinations, hotel companies, and attractions around the world, including Vancouver, Cleveland, Bermuda, Los Cabos, and he's also been working on a lot of the brand research and strategy planning that we've been doing for Visit Myrtle Beach. And more people will see that rolling out over the next year or so. Their company is one of the top hospitality firms, advertising and marketing firms in the world, and has conducted a lot of research along the way as they monitor this pandemic that we've all been experiencing and has impacted us so much. So with that, I'll turn it over to Stuart to start the presentation.
Thank you very much, Diane, and thank you all for having me. It's always an honor and a pleasure to talk with everyone there. So let me just get started and share my screen real quickly. So thought we would start out and quickly talk about what's going on, how should we be talking to travelers, and where do we go from here? There's a lot of information out there, and while we don't claim to be economists by any means, we, as Diane said, we only work in travel, tourism, hospitality, and so we do a lot of proprietary research of our own, and then look at a lot of other things to try to glean how that's going to affect our clients and the industry at large. I think we can talk, and everyone will kind of understand this, how we approach a pandemic, a situation like this. It starts with fear and it goes to understanding. And then we take action and rational behavior, but that's how travelers are thinking about this as well as we move through this. Just to kind of put a little bit of context, and this was as of April 14th, this is how many people have been searching for COVID-19 on Google, and it obviously is everything that we're thinking about right now. And so it really has. If you look, this is just from a couple hours ago, we're now 1 in 3 cases around the world. So it still continues to be every news cycle that we talk about, and it's really hitting our industry especially hard. We think that we're going to be, it's hitting us hard right now. We also think that we're going to be one of the first to rebound. But if you look at the forecasts in the industry, it's a $910 billion economic loss. 93% of the global population under restrictions. Airlines revenue forecasted at under 44%, and hospitality RevPAR half, and occupancy down 38%. It's creating mass disruption. And when you look at this, these are the latest numbers from our latest wave of testing in research with Destinations International. But obviously the closures, the stay-at-home orders are affecting everything that we do and creating a new reality for all of us. But there are, and I don't know if you've seen some of these, but there are some interesting good news. This idea that by lack of people out and doing things, the water in Venice is actually running clear during this lockdown. The national parks, air is getting cleaner. So there are some positives that come out of this. Here's what we know: the pandemic's progression is extremely unpredictable. Anybody who says they know, it's changing hour by hour. But what is predictable is that tourism is going to bounce back, and it's going to be more important than any other time in history. It's going to be more important to communities and government. We're seeing this, and as we've talked a lot about in Myrtle Beach was built for this. It's ever since its inception. So it's the lifeline to the community and will be so in the recovery. Drive and regional travel will recover first, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. And pin-up demand will build from the community out. And the Chamber's doing a great job of highlighting that. Families are reconnecting and will want to travel together, or they're not going to want to travel together. And I think that's also an interesting thing. We've seen a lot of stories about will we want to stay together, will we want to break apart? And as always, the aggressive marketers are going to steal share. Now, we think out of being an outdoor recreation drive destination, you are very well positioned to welcome back travelers. And as we very well know, that's happening soon. And so what we go from here? Well, I think it's good to look at kind of what we can learn from this. This is from Oxford Economics. And they have a 5-stage recovery plan where they're talking that it's going to level out towards the end of the year, but that we see that the peaks, it goes from weeks to a month, and the post-peak, and then we get into our recovery. When you look, though, at some encouraging signs, if you look at what's happening in China, room nights are actually picking up post-pandemic, and which is encouraging. Our first travel insight is that travel sentiment, activity, and spending will return more quickly than many have predicted. We think that when you talk to people right now, that they're such in a vacuum and they're listening to negative news. When given the opportunity with that pin-up desire, it will pick back up. Again, these are our most recent numbers, and it's the slowdown and the spread that are most impacting a leisure trip. Interestingly enough, and we can talk about this later, great travel deals went down almost 10 points in the last 2 weeks on this, meaning they're going to travel and they're wanting to look for deals, but it's not necessarily the deal. So I think that can give us a little insight into how we approach rate in that category. Now, this is the magnitude of the coronavirus is much larger, and the spread, the number of patients, deaths, and projected length. But here's what the swine flu looked like. Mostly it wasn't breaking plans, but postponement of plans. Some did select destinations that weren't affected, but it wasn't so much canceling trips. Rebooking happened above normal demand within 120 days. When you look at post 9/11 and the Great Recession, also the travelers' trips didn't decline as much as spending. That means, that people are going to be shopping for deals. They're going to be looking for different lengths of travel. There's going to be a rise in VFR. Same of the story similar for room nights. There's decline in business was greater than it was for leisure, and recovery for business is slower. Not only was the recovery for business, but the growth has been slower than leisure, because companies have found other ways to do business with less travel, for which many companies it's a major expense, especially with layoffs and furloughs, looking how we can do those things in a different way. But what we saw is that the impact on accommodation spending, particularly after the recession, had to do with the types of hotels travelers were choosing. Because hotels were cutting rates after the recession, travelers were trading up rather than spending less. So they were actually looking to trade up their experiences. They were going to spend the same amount of money, but they were able to upgrade their experience. This has just come out. Again, it's interesting. For the first time, we're seeing reduced levels of people fears about and concerns about contracting the coronavirus, and you see by age. Interestingly enough, the age group of 50 to 64 is the least concern. But that begins to be positive. Also, travelers are becoming eager to travel, that they are looking to travel for leisure, obviously, first, that they're going to be staying closer to home. They're going to do it by car, and they're going to select these destinations closer to home, which for Myrtle Beach is very encouraging. Also just saw this from Deutsche Bank, but it's this idea of comfort level with resuming activity. And you see all of this, but the interesting part to me is not all the colored bars, it's this, that there's still large numbers of people out there that don't know, whether it's going to a concert, or going to a museum, going to an amusement park, or a theater performance, traveling, going to a conference. There's still opportunity for those people, for us to help them. And as marketers, this is where we can start to make impact. So insight number 2, stay the course and let data lead the way. Don't allow pressure from flash trends and dramatically shift your strategy. Now, there's a whole lot of things that have come out of this pandemic, from online concerts and trading up and doing master classes. I don't know about everybody else, but Zoom is probably going to be here to stay, even though it's one of those things that it's become our new way of meeting. But there's people that are hesitant to visit large events. There's contactless service, telemedicine replacing doctor visits. Some of those are going to stay, but a lot of those won't. A lot of those are a necessity right now. We're also looking ahead at when the restrictions lift more broadly, the idea of the resilient traveler. 16% of travelers say a government advisory would not keep them from visiting a destination. 23% of US travelers would not change anything if threatening incident took place a month prior to travel in their intended destination. There are those travelers among us that are looking to go, and they want to support the local economies. They want to support the places that they have been in the past, because it brings normalcy to who they are and their lives. But we also have to understand some of the different players that will make a difference when we come out of this. Google Travel is a streamlined trip planning platform that blends the services from other Google platforms to create travel plans for the customer. Along with Google Flights and hotels, it converges like everything from search to Gmail to Google Calendar to Google Maps, to help keep all your itineraries in one place where you can easily search for them. So they may be more of a player, and they may move into actual bookings, but either way, they're going to be becoming more relevant, and have to understand that as we move forward. But a strong marketing foundation is still going to be, as we move forward, how we stay the course. So we've got to introduce and engage at the top of the funnel with new potential visitors. And there are statistics that show that people will be looking to go to new destinations. We're going to need to drive consideration and model to their past behavior. And then we need to convert and book. And those are tactics that don't change. Because the industry is going to come back in a way that's predictable, marketing tactics will fall back into place. We're seeing statistics right now. 61% of leisure travelers agree that with the right messaging, ads for destinations are acceptable. At first, we were seeing that they didn't want to hear from us as destinations. Now we're seeing that people are doing that, because there's a 57% increase in the last 30 days of people talking about or dreaming of vacations over the last 30 days. And if you think about it, we always used to say that people, no matter where they are in the world, they look out their windows and they dream of being somewhere else. That, of course, is true more now than ever. But people that dream is what we as travel marketers can inspire and provide. And that hope and inspiration, I think, is what people need right now. And so that's what they're looking. They're looking to get out, and where are they going to go first? 130% increase in online conversations about needing or wanting a vacation. We had conversations this morning about that, where people, a lot of people haven't even taken vacation days. They're starting to add up during the stay-at-home orders. So there is going to be the demand of where people, the desire, and also just the need to get out. But it's going to be, I liken it to like the restart of a NASCAR race. Everybody's been going at their own pace, but we're going to get back to the starting line, and everybody's going to go at once. And we're all going to be going after the same travelers, and we're all going to want to tell them our message immediately. And we have a lot of things we want to tell them, but it's going to be important to be able to understand what other messages that they're hearing, what their mindset is, and how we can truly affect them and give them the information that they need. People are going to hit them with a lot of ads, and they're going to say a lot of the same things, because we know what they're wanting, and we're going to want to be in there first. But again, people the fear is saying the same things. You may have seen recently Hilton and Lysol and the Mayo Clinic have gotten together to do the Hilton Stay Clean, where they're instituting a whole new level of cleaning with the 10 high-touch areas of the guest room. And you're going to see a lot of those. I've talked with several destinations about talking about the cleanliness. So while those are going to be important, they're not going to be the only message we need to be able to talk to our travelers about. They're going to expect those kind of measures from us in the future. So people are looking forward to safe travel. You know, there's 40% of travelers feel like they're safe visiting a park. 19% of travelers feel safe staying at a vacation rental or condo. 13% say they feel safe staying at a hotel resort. And those numbers are growing. This is great. 68% of travelers say they feel safe in their personal car. And this one just came out. 41% of Americans say their first trip post COVID-19 will be by a car within 100 miles of home. And I think there's several different reasons for that. There is not wanting to go out, but I think that when you think of after Katrina, after 9/11, people wanted to put money into those particular destinations' economies. Since this is happening to all of us at the same time, since we've seen layoffs and our neighbors and friends losing jobs in restaurants and hotels without business, I think people are going to not only want to stay because they feel the duty to help their own economy before they go out and spend money somewhere else. So I think that there's a pride factor, and I know that Karen and Scott and Diana have been talking with local businesses, and I think that that's a really strong strategy, because I think that there's going to be a pride factor that we want to start at home first. In our most recent work we've done with you, a monthly monitoring of interest in visitors coming to Myrtle Beach in the next 12 months, we've seen in the past month a rise in that, which is always, I think, it's very encouraging. Always comes up to the top of the list of people where they want to go in the next 12 months. So as I said before, this idea of the nearcation and starting very local before we go out to the region and the state. And I think that you are so well positioned for this because of who you've talked to, because of who your audience has been in the past. We can only grow from that. And I think that that's the biggest opportunity for us, is knowing that people are going to want to get out, that we have 60 miles of the Grand Strand, that not only is there places to come, but it's a wide area that you don't have to be on top of each other, that there are places to find exactly the experience that you're looking for with your family. And I think that it positions Myrtle Beach very well in this idea of the local, state, and region as people start coming out and wanting to get away. And the biggest concern to me as we move forward, though, is the fact that we are going to say the same things and just create noise. And so I think in doing that, we have to understand, like I said, what the travelers are hearing and what they need to be, how we need to address that. The being consistent with our brand and your brands is going to help break through the noise. Being true to who you are and standing for your brand values. We're all going to want to have similar messages, but if you can do that through the lens of your brand, then you can stick out and break through that noise. Empathy is just as important as inspiration, and that's understanding how we talk to them and what they're going through. And it's something that as brands in the travel industry, we really haven't had to do like this before, but understanding what they're going through, because that idea of we are going through this all together, proving that, because the statement we're all in this together is an opportunity for you to fulfill a promise. So there are things like a program we just introduced that runs through June, this buy one, give one vacay layaway. And what it is we're asking travelers to buy gift cards for future stays, and with participating in hotels, then the hotel will give a room night to frontline healthcare workers. And we have several hotel companies and flags working with us on that. If you are interested, I would encourage you to get in touch with Diane and Scott, and we can help arrange that. But I think it's a really great cause. It also shows the power of the industry, and also shows where your heart's at. And I think that that's something that's going to be very important moving forward. And the idea of the calls to actions, they must be conveyed tactfully. And like I said, we all want people to book with us now, but how we do that, and the idea of giving them flexibility, I think the more flexible we can be right now is going to be pay dividends as we move forward. Because I think that the brands who are empathetic, who are human, who understand what's going on, are going to create unbreakable bonds with travelers moving forward. They're going to understand that you were the ones that were listening, and that you were the ones that were having conversations, and not just putting more noise out there. And I think that those are how we continue to build those bonds, to make it a personal connection and make it emotional. And I think that that's what's going to attract people to certain destinations. We at MMGY Global have created a messaging strategy around the idea of wait, ready, set, go. And wait is the quarantine and social distancing, ready, reduction of distancing, starting to get into planning, and then set and go are where we're quickly heading. And so the idea of it gives us a structure in which to be able to talk with people in a way that is emotional. We're going to encourage people to explore. We're going to give them the reasons to believe. We're going to talk about the calls to actions. And so we've worked with the Visit Myrtle Beach to create a very tailored ready, set, go messaging strategy and communications roadmap moving forward to help do those, to create those messages and be consistent, so that we are inspiring, we are being empathetic, and we're then getting them into the booking funnel quickly. Because again, I think that we're predicting very quickly that people will be bouncing back, because I think given the opportunity, once we get out and once we have the opportunity, we're going to want to, like I said, we're going to want to support local, but we're also want to get out and go to places. And I think Myrtle Beach is exactly the type of experience people will be looking for. This is the example where we're talking about what the traveler mindset is, what the messaging is, and what the call to action. So these will adjust as traveler sentiment adjusts. But as we're starting to return to more normal routines, people are going to be looking for an escape. So we want the brand's role at that time is to provide reasons to believe and encourage bookings. And this idea of messaging, creating a place for a sense of belonging, a place where you belong. We've felt very isolated right now. And I think the one thing that, of many that Myrtle Beach has going for it is a place that's very open and accepting. And I think that's going to pay huge dividends in our messaging moving forward. So I very much appreciate your time. I wanted to be very cognizant of your time because everybody's busy and you guys are extremely busy right now as we move forward with this, but would love to answer any questions if you have them.
One question I see that someone submitted is they understand this focus of this conversation today is on leisure, but they're curious if we have any insight into how far off the group meetings market can expect to recover. Is it 6 months, 1 year, 18 months or more? And do we expect the meetings that do take place to have significantly decreased participation rates?
It's a very good question. I had a meeting about this morning. I just talked with our CEO, and he's feeling that the meeting is going to pick up very the tail end of this year and into 21. I think it's still early to find out, to predict what we think they're going to look like. I don't think any of us thought we would be doing Zoom meetings all the time. It's not really, we haven't seen it work so much with trade shows, but I think that it's still early. We think that it will bounce back, but it will lag significantly behind leisure travel.
Another question was, well, let's see, I'll switch to related to that. Someone said, when do you see business travel increasing? I think it's similar.
Yeah, that's, again, just as in post 9/11, there was a significant lag because what we were finding out is that how much of it is really essential travel for business. So that's going to weigh into this. In addition, with the layoffs and furloughs like we haven't seen before, that's going to play into it as well. But again, I think I saw something, September, October is when I saw the latest that in our numbers that seem to be where we're predicting an uptick in business travel.
Mm-hmm. Another question is, given the number of brands who have been leaning heavily on the "we're all in this together" messaging for the past several weeks, we're beginning to see a lot of fatigue in this narrative. In your opinion, what does the next evolution of that message as we switch focus from current situation and try to get people to start being inspired and dreaming about their next vacation?
That's a great question. There's a link, and I'll send it to Diane and Scott. And if you haven't seen it, and there's it's this video of all COVID-19 commercials sound the same. And I think it's right. And I had just written an article that talked about, when I first heard it, I thought it was exactly what I needed to hear at that point. It made me feel stronger, it made me feel a part of something bigger, but I've heard it now so many times and it's become an empty statement that doesn't make me feel anything. And what I said earlier is what I really believe, is the fact that it's not saying we're in this all together, it's we're in this all together, and it's an opportunity for your brand to have a promise, and we're doing something about it. Because we know we're all in this together, this is how we're approaching it. I think that, other than just not saying it, I think that's how we should approach it. I also think that it's quickly becoming the time, and I had in my notes to mention this, so thank you. The somber tones and the introspective tones, I think we get it, and we understand that, and we now want to dream of travel, and travel's fun. And I think that people are giving us permission to have those kind of conversations so we can introduce the fun back in travel. We can talk about the great things about travel, and those are where I think we need to be going. We're past the phase where we're shut in. It's now we really want that tangible feeling. And so I think that put the fun back in travel, getting people excited, is where we're going to be headed.
Another question was, how do we see group sales market changing? Do we feel it will have the same patterns as individual travel? And I'm meaning field trips, family reunions, etc.
Personally, I think that while they will lag, those will come back. That interaction. I think that the just travel, business travel in general, and the group sales, I don't have a handle on that yet. We could get some more information on that, but I really think that it's going to push, because I just don't think that people feel the essential need to do it right this second, or in the near term.
Another question was, what we are sending to our customers and clients, are you saying we should be upbeat, but also that we should be taking care of business for our employees and customers safely?
Yes, I think that, yes, I think upbeat is, we want to inspire them. We want to know, and if they're dreaming, we don't want to get in the way of that. That's why I say it's very important, I think, to be flexible in our booking and cancellation policies, because I think that people, if they're dreaming about traveling and they want to travel, but they may be, they want to book, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to go when I have it planned. Let's not get in the way of that. Let's help them book and figure it out, and have a conversation with them. I think the brands that are bold and strong and set the tone, others will follow, because that's the right thing to do. I apologize. Was the second part of that, Diane? What was the?
But also that it was a balancing of those messages.
Balancing, yeah. And I think that people will expect us to be providing a clean environment. So I think it's important to talk about those messages, but I don't think that quickly don't think that those will be the unique part of it. People will expect that out of us as hotels, resorts, and travel brands.
We have another question about international travel. What is your estimate regarding international travel recovery timelines, especially from Canada, overseas? Canadians can drive to Myrtle Beach from Toronto in 15 hours plus short stops. So anticipation is that the drive market will rebound first from Eastern Canada, where many do traditionally drive.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it goes in that concentric circle where people will be looking regionally before they start going internationally. And the statistic, I was trying to find it here, the statistic that we were talking about the lag in international travel, we've seen that not change in the past 2 flights of our research, that people aren't looking internationally right now. And best guesstimate, I don't think I think it's going to be late fourth quarter, early first quarter of next year before that picks up.
Mm-hmm. A follow-up to that was, would you say the messaging for Canadians will be different as we move forward?
I think that not necessarily will be different. I think that how the conversation and how we lead into it might be, but I think that positioning Myrtle Beach as this place where all are welcome, where you can find your place, where we have 60 miles of places to spread out, and where you can feel like you belong in a place, that's going to be a universal message that we all need to hear and that we all want to hear. So there may be different calls to actions that we would look into for that market, but I think overall messaging, the idea would be similar.
And then we had another question that said, in our marketing message during recovery campaign, should we focus on deals, bargains to entice travelers, since people don't have a lot of money now, or focus on sanitation, safety? It's that balance again. And I know we've talked a lot about the need to offer value, but not necessarily deep discount our product this year. But what do you think of balancing those messages?
That's right. I think that, and I understand the need, and I understand what's going on, but I would say is we can not to immediately cut rate and discount, because we saw after the last recession, it took us 7.5, 8 years to get back to the rates that we had. And I know that's a hard thing to do, but what I really think we should be looking to do is how do we add value, and how are we providing those things. So I think it's going to be having those conversations with our guests to find out. But I do think it's not one or the other. I think we're going to, like Diane said, I think we're going to have to balance those. They're going to want to know that we are doing what they expect us to do to provide clean and safe environments. But I also don't think initially we would be wanting to cut rate wholesale.
Mm-hmm. And then you talked a little bit about our Ready, Set, Go strategy. How quickly do you think Myrtle Beach as a destination should move from ready to set to go? How long before we're back at full speed with our marketing?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's, as much as anything else, and I know that the team is already working on this, it's starting to test messages to find out what is working with people and what is resonating with. And it's a lot of that becomes from listening socially, listening to people and what the conversations are like, because you don't want to be tone deaf going out there with messages when they're not ready for them. So this is, as the team can attest, this has been a ever-changing and sometimes daily change in what the sentiment is out there. But you are obviously one of the first destinations to open back up. I think we're looking at a bunch of different, just this weekend, we looked at 10 or 12 different messaging strategies to be able to do that. So I think it is testing, finding out which works, looking at the data, and then continuing with that and refining so that we're connecting with our travelers.
Yeah, an iterative process as we kind of ramp up. We also have another question. Myrtle Beach is largely comprised of independent properties. Will independent hotels and resorts maintain their fair share of consumed room nights, or do you foresee guests more readily seeking out flagged properties, Sheraton, Marriott, Hilton?
I think a destination like Myrtle Beach is going to do well. I do. I think that it's a relationship. And I think that the type of traveler that's been coming, it hasn't always gone to the flag properties. So I think that your destination will be well suited. There are people that will seek those out, but I think that as long as we're connecting with people and listening to people and trying to have those conversations with them, I think that that your independent hotels will fare well.
Thank you. Any other questions from the group? We're looking pretty good. Well, I want to thank you, Stuart, for your time today. We really value the insight and the guidance that we've received along the way. And definitely these are uncharted waters for everyone.
That's right. And I just thank you very much for your time. If there's anything that I can do, please reach out to Diane and Karen and Scott. You guys are doing the right thing and doing it the right way, and you've got strong leadership. Anything that we can do to assist in that, please let us know.
Thank you. And for the attendees, we are, like I said at the beginning, we're recording this, so we will be sharing a link with attendees and it will be posted online. If you guys, like Stuart said, have any questions at all, feel free to reach out to me, Scott, Karen, or even Bob if it's related to the group side of things, and we'll do everything we can to assist. Thank you all.
Thank you.
And thank you again, Stuart. We really appreciate you.
Thank you very much.
See you soon. Thanks. Take care, everybody.